In 1951, a man in his 20s reportedly appeared out of nowhere in the heart of bustling New York City, bringing the streets to a complete standstill. The man seemed entirely out of place and time. His hairstyle and clothing, said to be from the mid-1800s, seemed about 70 years out of date.
So it left them wondering not so much where he came from, but went,
Witnesses reported he appeared distressed and confused by his surroundings, and suddenly panicked and ran. Sadly, within a minute, he was hit by a speeding taxi and died. When officials at the morgue searched his body, they discovered a variety of strange items that left local authorities baffled. Among them were a copper token for a beer, worth 5 cents from a saloon that was unknown even to older residents, a bill for the care of a horse, and the washing of a carriage from a livery stable on Lexington Avenue that was not listed in any address book, approximately $70 in old banknotes, business cards with the name Rudolf Fenz with an address on 5th Avenue, and finally, a letter sent to that 5th Avenue address from Philadelphia, dated June 1976. What's even more strange is that none of these items seemed old or worn out, especially the letter, which didn't look 75 years old at all. This weird case was assigned to NYPD Captain Hubert V. Rim, who worked on missing person cases and tried to use this information to find out who the man was. But when he went to the 5th Avenue address found on the man's card, no one there had ever heard of Rudolf Fenz, and the place turned out to be a business, not a house. Fenz's name wasn't listed in any current phone or address book. His fingerprints weren't on record anywhere, and no one had reported him missing after his death. Despite this, Rim continued his investigation and found the name of Rudolf Fenz Jr. in a 20-year-old phone book from 1939. It turned out that Fenz Jr. no longer lived at the listed address. The current residents were a middle-aged couple who remembered the previous owner. They said he was about 60 years old, had worked nearby and moved away after retiring in 1940, but they didn't know where. Rim managed to find the bank that handled Fenz Jr.'s business account. From there, he learned that Fenz Jr. had died 5 years earlier in 1946, but his widow was still alive and living in Florida. When Rim contacted her, she simply said that her husband's father, Rudolf Fenz Sr., had disappeared in 1876 at the age of 29. He had left the house one evening at about 10 p.m. for a walk and had never come back. So, what happened to the original Rudolf Fenz?
Guy left his kid, shows up when his son is 70 and he is still 29. Dad is 29, son is 70. Did he accidentally travel into the future?
Well, if you travel fast, your time coordinate is changing too. And we know it's real and it works and we have tested it. So, there is a speed and a time with which you can travel and stay away, where if you come back after one of your years, Earth could have aged 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years, depending on how fast you moved. So in that sense, yes, we can go to the future, arbitrarily far into the future.
In 2006, in Kyiv, Ukraine, the police were called to help a confused young man. When they got there, they found him scared, unsure of his surroundings, dressed in outdated clothes and holding a camera. His name was Sergei Ponomarenko. Things got even weirder when they asked for his ID. It was from a country that didn't even exist anymore, the Soviet Union. Sure, Ukraine used to be a part of it, but that was decades ago. But his ID said he was born in 1932, and the photo in the ID matched his face. When they asked the date, he confidently said it was April 23, 1958. So yeah, things weren't adding up. The police said, okay, we're gonna take you to a small room and you're gonna talk to a doctor. So Sergei ended up in a mental hospital under the care of Dr. Pablo Krudakov. The doctor played along with his whole idea and asked him if he could figure out or if he could remember how he ended up in 2006, even though he thought it was 1954. As recorded by the doctor, Sergei said, "It was daytime and I wanted to take a walk in the city. I took my camera, but when I left my house, I saw a strange object that had a bell shape." It was very unusual, and it was flying in an odd manner. It's difficult to explain what I was seeing. It might be better to look at the photos from my camera. Dr. Krudakov was curious, so he examined the camera. The first thing he noticed was that it was a very old, rare Yashima Flex, which was a problem because it used a type of film that hadn't been manufactured since the 1970s. He called in a photographer expert, Vadim Boisner. Vadim extracted the film and noticed, based on the information provided, that it was manufactured in 1956. However, it was in perfect condition.
So his camera and ID looked totally 50s style and they hadn't aged a day.
When he developed the roll, things became even more intriguing. What he found on the roll were photos of Kiev, but clearly from a long time ago. All the cars, clothes, and street signs were from the 50s. And there were photos of buildings that didn't exist anymore. The last photo on the reel, just as Sergei had suggested, featured a bell-shaped UFO. When the doctor asked him about the UFO photos, Sergei said, "Now are you convinced I'm telling the truth? I still don't understand what this object is and how something like this happened to me. The moment I took the picture and looked down at the camera, somehow I found myself in this year."
Whoa, this man really traveled to the future. If this was some kind of alien spacecraft, it could perhaps have flown him across the universe at the speed of light and brought him back in a split second. And due to Einstein's theory of relativity, he would experience time dilation, meaning that time would have barely passed for him, but back on Earth, 47 years would have gone by.
That night, Sergei went back to his room, closed the door, and was never seen again.
The security camera captured him entering the room, but never filmed him leaving. Why? There must have been only one way to escape that room, so there was no way to leave without being noticed.
He just vanished. He was never found, and no means of escape were ever discovered, leaving the police with his camera, photographs, and a crazy mystery to solve. The mystery just kept getting weirder.
What, is that all? Didn't they investigate the case to find out if anyone recalled or reported someone missing from the 50s?
As of 2021, when this documentary was released, there was indeed a Sergei Ponomarenko declared missing in the 1960s. They managed to track down his girlfriend, who by then was over 70. She told the police that Sergei disappeared one day in 1958, but returned just a few days later, the exact amount of time he claimed to have spent in 2006. However, she said he vanished again in 1970 and was never seen after that. But years after he vanished, she received a strange photo in the email. Look at the background. The skyline is full of skyscrapers. God knows what year this is. Why is my man still rocking his old-school Soviet clothes and carrying that USSR passport? We've already switched to digital passports.
Einstein tells me how to get 1 million years from now. Build a ship that can go out into the universe near the speed of light, turn around and come back. Let's say it's a 6-month journey out, a 6-month journey back. And Einstein tells me how fast I need to travel, how close to the speed of light I need to go, so that when I step out of my ship, it will now be 1 million years into the future on planet Earth.
Okay, this one's wild. So, Tyson's match with McNeely in 1995? Big deal, cause it was Iron Mike's first post-prison fight. It only lasted 89 seconds, with McNeely being knocked down twice. But here's the freaky part. Footage shows some dude in the crowd holding what looks like a smartphone years before they were invented. The device is slim, white, with the camera spot on the top left, just like our phones today. But it couldn't exist in '95. I don't think it looks like cameras from that era either. It's much smaller, and the guy's holding it with just one hand. To be honest, I'm not really sure what this is.
Back in the 90s, everyone had those big old camcorders, but this guy, it looks more like an iPhone or Google Pixel than a camcorder. If that was a smartphone, why weren't the people around the guy amazed by the display screen on it?
Man, I'm a total sucker for stories like these. I'm not sure if they're true, but everything can be explained. You'll be the judge. Let's go through them.
In the case of Rudolf Fenz, some things don't add up. He disappeared in 1876 and came back in 1951, but his son was born in 1980 and died in 1946? How's he having a kid while missing? In 1951, Ream found Rudolf Fenz Jr.'s name in a 1939 phone book, but that phone book would have only been 12 years old, not 20. Also, beer tokens from the 1800s were made of wood, not copper. With wood being abundant, bars probably whittled them rather than minting. Well, if it was real, the NYPD should still have his documents and know where they buried the body. And also, if they could identify the widow, why didn't they have her identify the body or ask her for a photo? So this story that's been floating around since the 70s or earlier isn't true. It's actually from a short story called I Am Scared by Jack Finney, the same guy who wrote Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The story came out in Collier's magazine in 1951, around when Rudolf Fenz was said to have appeared.
It was nice to believe, though. I've never been so excited and so disappointed in such a short period of time.
The Sergei Ponomarenko story is a good story, but there's an issue. All the images and evidence shown in videos trace back to a TV show called Aliens that aired on the Ukrainian channel 1+1 in 2012. What you're seeing are just recreations. Those images of Sergei that are everywhere, they're all staged. And the supposed security camera footage from Tuesday, April 23rd, 2006, that's wrong. April 23rd, 2006 was actually a Sunday. Plus, that photo from the future seems fishy. Buildings look copy-pasted, and one even resembles the Empire State Building. If he were a time traveler and realized someone might be close to finding out, wouldn't he want to go back in time and either change the evidence to make it look fictional or fake? Also, he traveled to the future, and then back to the past, which seems impossible due to the grandfather paradox, like you mentioned with the changing of old clothes and passport. However, theoretically, it might be possible by bending or warping space-time to such an extent that you can take a shortcut from point A to point B, allowing you to move faster than light. If you could exceed light speed and get space-time to loop like a cylinder, you might reach the past. But the idea of traveling faster than light itself breaks laws of physics, so it's unlikely. So, yeah, the story is fake.
Crap, this was a good one.
I'm not entirely sure about the device in the Mike Tyson fight, but why would a time traveler go back just to watch a boxing match?
Maybe he really wanted to see Iron Mike Tyson fight in his prime. I mean, who wouldn't?
But if he really did time travel, would he be so careless as to let others see him? Why draw attention to yourself? That just seems foolish. However, the device might just be one of the handheld cameras available back then. The video's quality and size make it challenging to identify the device. It closely resembles the Fujix Simple HI-8 camcorder or the Casio QV-10A, which can be used vertically. It does look a lot like a modern mobile phone, but I'm not 100% sure.
If any of you guys know, please let us know in the comments. So why do we want so desperately for these stories to be true? I myself believed them all to be real. Now I'm extremely disappointed and my day's ruined. But I guess these events might never happen in the future.
Obviously, human civilization can't make it happen because creating something like a wormhole or achieving FTL speed requires a crazy amount of energy. Possibly like all the energy of exploding stars.
Then maybe a more advanced civilization could. So one thing I want to mention is that we are obsessed with time travel. Well, probably it's because we're obsessed with time itself. Time rules our lives, creating opportunities and also ending them. The biggest mistake is you think you have time. Time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once it's lost, you can never get it back. So, use it wisely. And I hope you don't feel that watching this channel is wasting time. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you either learned something or had fun. Please help us beat the algorithm by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Until next time, stay safe and stay smart.